Today on Hidden Equity, we are going to be talking about what a buyer should offer on a house and what a seller should be doing to prepare their house so they don't have serious negotiations against them. Let's start with the easiest situation, which is when a buyer stumbles upon their absolute dream home. It's very simple. The buyer needs to submit full price. You're probably like, that's not what I wanted to hear. The truth is, if it's your dream home, it's probably somebody else's dream home. And here is an example. I had a client who was buying a house on Camelback Mountain in Phoenix, Arizona, and we got under contract. It was about $3.3 million, maybe a little bit more. We got into the inspections and there was a $30,000 repair that was needed. Well, we had one major alpha and another major alpha as the buyer and the seller. And I had the seller, and he let that house go. If you ever see this, I'm sorry, out of pride and ego. That was in 2017, 2018. To this day, whatever year you watch this video, he still regrets not buying that house and not just paying the $30,000 to get whatever it was repaired. Now he compares every single house year after year to Camelback Canyon. And he's never going to get it again. Now the price has jumped like millions of dollars, and he had a once in a lifetime chance and he wishes that he got it. So every time we go out looking, he's just filled with regret. And that's what will happen if you find a home that you absolutely love and you have to have and you can't live without. Put your best foot forward. You want it, get it. Now, we want to remove all of the emotions when it comes to a real estate transaction. So much easier said than done, but that's why you hire a real estate agent. You want them to be your neutral third party because they have zero attachment to whatever house you're buying, and they can see it clearly. They've also been in this situation with multiple buyers, so they should have knowledge, experience, and be able to anticipate how the transaction is going to go. The first time you want to see a house, your real estate agent should make themselves known. Let's say you want to see 5 houses. They need to call every single one of those listing agents, introduce themselves, tell them a little bit about the buyer. Are they in-state, out-of-state? Is this their first time out? Is this cash, finance, anything they can say, because it establishes a relationship with the listing agent. I hate to say it, but a listing agent has a lot of power. They're the only person talking to the buyer's agent, which means we want to have a good standing relationship with them. Listen, some people rub you the wrong way immediately, so I understand that, but your real estate agent needs to be available, let's call it. Once they make themselves known, you guys go see the house, you want to put in the offer. Where do we come up with the number? I'll tell you right now, it is not out of thin air. It is not, oh, they bought it in this year for this amount of money. They don't deserve the price they're asking for, so I'm not going to give it to them. No, that's not how it works. We look at comps. We find out what big ticket items have been done. So roof, pool, HVAC, even the water heater, anything that you can think of, any updates, remodels, doors, windows, plumbing, whatever it is. We need to gather all of that information. Hopefully, the listing agent on the other side already has all of that, has all of the receipts, can show you everything that's been done. And hopefully the listing agent priced the house according to where it falls on the not remodeled and original scale all the way up to fully remodeled with everything brand new. There's a scale, and the listing agent's job is to make sure that whatever house they're representing falls within that certain category of the scale of sales within that neighborhood or marketplace. The buyer's agent wants to ask the listing agent a few questions. Obviously, price is going to be number one and the most important. So other than price, what are some terms the sellers are looking for? Super easy. And we also want to know, how did you get to this price? You can either ask that question and be quiet, or you can ask them to supply you the comps that they use to price the house if the price feels a little high. Perhaps the seller got an appraisal beforehand and they can share that with you. There's different ways to get to a price point, and it's really important to understand how they got there. And it's, again, not just the seller pulling this number out of thin air saying, I need this for my retirement, or this is what the market warrants, or this is my make me move price. All of these things are definitely things that sellers do. And these are things that listing agents represent because they think that they're going to be able to talk some sense into their client. Typically, they can't. We want to understand the costs of what it's going to take to get the house to the place you want it to be. Usually every single house, I shouldn't say usually, always, every single house, when it has an inspection, things will come up. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small. And on top of it, sometimes there's a remodel. So you have to keep in mind, when you're a buyer, you are walking into this house that is fresh to you, meaning you've never been in there. You don't know how the seller lives. If it's vacant, you can obviously see a lot more of what's going on, the condition of the house. Either way, whether it's vacant or occupied, you want to take note of the smell. And when I say a seller gets used to their own stuff, I mean it in the sense that if something's broken and they don't want to fix it because they don't think it's worth it, maybe they can't pay for it, whatever the reason, they get used to it. They don't see it anymore. They just learn to live with it. So you come in as a buyer fresh to this house, you fall in love with the house and you're like, how does somebody live like this? And maybe it's a personality type, right? We just need to get some quotes to understand what the cost will be to fix the items that require fixing. Now, when it comes to cosmetic updates, this isn't really the seller's responsibility. But the house, again, should be priced appropriately to reflect the fact that the house needs updates. So you're negotiating from a bottom price of the price range rather than, listing at $1 million and it really should be sold for $750. So it should be within that price range, which would help the buyer move the needle a little bit more because you're not fighting from a high price point stance. You can go do your research. We need to know the recent comps in the neighborhood. We need to know. I don't love dollar per square foot. Some people swear by it. I mean, to me, you have to have the exact same square footage because that's like a moving target. Days on market, and just having an understanding of what's going on around. Like, there's just so many factors that go into it. Once you present the offer, if it is a low offer, your real estate agent, the buyer's agent, needs to call the listing agent and explain it or walk them through. Some people suggest trying to get an in-person meeting with the listing agent and the seller. And then if you can't, asking the listing agent to forward the email or maybe send a video or something so that there's some intention and purpose, because this is a game of telephone. So the buyer submits something to the seller, but it goes through two people. It goes through the buyer's agent and it goes through the listing agent. And email has no tone. Text has no tone. If one real estate agent is maybe having a bad day or perhaps they don't get along, now you're getting that telephone coil kind of turned around and it's like getting bunched up because people aren't maybe getting along or understanding, or maybe I don't have time. And they just relay a message, and then the seller's receiving this after, 2 rounds of communication, and the seller can immediately be offended. They might not be offended by what's on paper, but perhaps in the presentation or the pitch of how the seller presents your offer, that can ruin it. I hate to say that. It can ruin it, but the two agents working together is crucial, which is why it goes back to my first point of your agent needs to call and establish themselves. You're nice, you're friendly, you're trying to be collaborative and open to like, hey, how can we make this work if my client likes this house? And just being forthcoming with information. You're not giving all of your leverage away or your power away by any means. You're just establishing who you are, because most agents put in a showing request, go to the house, don't leave feedback. They're like a ghost. It just whatever. It just like never happens. And so by your agent making a phone call, they are removing themselves from the no-namers and they're becoming important. All right, now when we get to the seller side, I just want to explain that the seller really should take a chance and spend some money to see what their product, the house, what kind of product they're putting on the market. A seller is an amateur seller. They're new to the market. Maybe they haven't sold in many years. Maybe they did a remodel. They think it's the greatest thing on the planet, whatever the reason. But they're an amateur seller walking into the lion's den of seasoned buyers. those buyers have most likely submitted offers. They have probably lost out on some houses, and they've probably gone under contract and had quite an experience, at least once, understanding inspections and negotiations and how it works. And they're smarter this time around. So when a seller does not take the time to do their due diligence before going on the market, they don't have a thorough understanding of the product that they're selling. And it's super important to make sure that you get that inspection report, you have every single big ticket item maintained, at least have small corrections made. Just fix what you can. It doesn't have to be everything, but fix what you can. You want to have that pride of homeownership, because as silly as it sounds, that's a feeling. And people can feel that when they walk in your house. And that includes condition, right? People feel a little bit worse to rip apart a house that's in great condition, but it's original, versus a brand new house that has, chipped up baseboards and like dents in the walls and everything is like in complete disarray. And you walk in and it just feels chaotic. You are selling a feeling. Yes, you're selling the floor plan and the square footage and the location, but you are selling a feeling. And what your agent should be doing, if you are a seller, is they should be taking you to 3 to 5 other active listings in the area. Yes, it's time out of your day, but it is going to give you a harsh realization of what other buyers are experiencing. Now, this is not to compare the houses to your house, because we all know every seller is going to walk into those 4 other houses and say, this isn't as good as mine. That's not what I mean. We're not there to compare it. We do want to see what our competition is, 1000%, but we also want to see what the buyer is going to be experiencing when they go into similar houses. People don't do that. And if you're a seller and you're out of state, or you're going to be out of town, that's fine. This isn't a must. This is a total cherry on top to give you the best competitive edge that you can have in order to position yourself the best and make your house the obvious choice. That's what this is doing. It's making you knowledgeable. When you receive a low offer, actually, scratch that. When you receive any offer as the seller, my rule is that you always counter. You have a buyer who is ready, willing, and able. They put an offer in. They saw the house. They took the time to write an offer. They thought about it. There's something about the house that they like. Always, always, always counter offer. The counter offer can be asking price. It does not have to be lower. Almost always, if the seller comes down $5,000, let's say, that's a dick move. That's a big F you. And the buyer doesn't like it. And it makes negotiations really hard. The smoothest transactions I have are when the seller responds with their bottom line, and that's the take it or leave it. There's no right way to negotiate, but this is, in my opinion, the most effective instead of doing the dance. That's a very bold move, but it puts you as the seller back in the driver's seat, because you don't care if this buyer buys your house. Most sellers have a little bit of that handcuff feel, like, oh, they're nervous. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get something else. Like, I don't want to leave any money on the table. And because of that, you kind of end up being wishy-washy and you don't really know. And then you're trying to win here and win there. And the truth is, whether you're a buyer or a seller, or even the real estate agent in the transaction, you don't know everybody's negotiating style. And that's actually something I always ask my clients. What's your negotiation style? Also, I ask, side note, how do you want to be communicated with? And I don't mean by email, text, or phone call. I mean, do you want it to be direct? Do you want it to be fluffy? Do you need it to be through storytelling? Understanding your client as the real estate agent is so important. And people don't take the time to understand their client or their needs or anything really about like their personality or just whatever it is that they need. Okay. When you're the seller, always counter. And we just don't know. We have somebody who wants to buy the house, so let's work with it. Now, if it's an investor and they're offering something extremely low, like, okay, we get it. We're not gonna play with that. But if you feel like the offer is extremely low, Then it's your turn to do the due diligence, sending over the comps, sending over the appraisal, sending over anything that you have to make this house look like it's worth and support the price that you're asking or support the price that you're countering at. And that's okay. Like both sides can go back and forth. I think most people know this is business. And I think most people, they kind of just want a win, which is why the buyer's agent in the beginning should ask the seller's agent what's important to the seller other than price. Can we incentivize the seller to feel like they won while we get our price? That's kind of what we're doing here. It's the dance. We can get into the details of like the buyer offers as is. I'm not going to request any repairs. The problem is during COVID, everybody would say that, then they'd get in and they'd see that the roof needs to be replaced and they'd ask for a whole roof. So I don't always take that one at face value, just like I don't think that the seller should. But when you're the seller and you've done all your due diligence and you understand in a very thorough and detailed manner exactly what's going on with your house and the kind and quality of product that you are presenting, then it's really easy to negotiate. Well, Mr. Buyer, here's all the receipts for everything we've done. Here's the health of every single thing of this house. You don't really have anything to stand on because I already priced it exactly where it should be. And you have X, Y, and Z working in your favor. Mic drop, right? These are some things that the buyer, the seller, and the real estate agent should be taking into consideration when making an offer, when receiving an offer. At the end of the day, the number is always going to be whatever it is that the buyer or seller can agree upon. As a neutral third party, your real estate agent should not be pushing you or encouraging you, like if you're the buyer, to buy something that you don't love or to buy something that you feel a little uncomfortable with. I have seen agents do that. They push them into the deal because they just want to close the client because the agent needs the money for whatever reason. And then you have sellers where it's also like, I don't really want to work with this person. It's a bad feeling. And you kind of have to listen to that. And the real estate agents, again, this is my last tip. I totally forgot to put this in my notes. If you are a buyer or seller, it's super important to ask your real estate agent if they have ever bought or sold any real estate themselves. Most people don't think to ask that. Why is that important? Because when you get into serious negotiations, you as the client get real creative when you want to make something work. And when you are the real estate agent who's unattached, you're thinking, oh my gosh, where did you come up with this idea? And then when you take a minute and you're like, oh yeah, I remember when I was in my real estate transaction, I had the same thing. I was just as like, how am I going to make this work? And that is what you need. You need somebody who's been in your shoes and to understand, who can brainstorm with you and who can not only use their knowledge and leverage as a real estate agent, but as an actual buyer or seller. And I'm sorry, but if you live at home or if you are a forever renter, you don't have that experience. You can't speak to it. You probably are rolling your eyes like, oh my God, why don't they just accept the $3,000? Like, no, dude, $3,000 is $3,000. Let's cut that somehow, some way, some shape, right? Like you get creative. So I'm going to leave you with that. You want a seasoned agent who is not only seasoned in selling, but also seasoned in a home owning experience. And let me know if I missed anything or if there's any other topics I can talk about. Cheers.